Hello, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Moore's October Rants. Today's episode is going to be titled, Doing Your Own Thing. We all begin with the quiet hope that life can be lived on our own terms, that we can move through the world doing our own thing, unapologetically, freely, and with a sense of personal rhythm. It's a comforting belief that authenticity will be enough, and that we don't have to explain ourselves to anyone. For a while, that belief holds. We form routines, chase passions, follow impulses. The world feels big, but not oppressive. Our existence feels like our own, and that's a kind of freedom hard to name but deeply felt. Then gradually, often without us noticing, something starts to shift. We become more aware of our surroundings, not just the physical world, but the social one. We start tuning into the habits, behaviors, and choices of others. We notice what they're wearing, how they're speaking, how confident or seem, and we begin comparing. At first, it feels casual, harmless, but comparison has a subtle gravity to it. It pulls on our self-perception, bends it around the presence of others. We start asking quiet, invisible questions. Am I enough? Do I measure up? Do they see me the way I want to be seen? This is where the spotlight effect often sneaks in. It's the idea that there's always a metaphorical spotlight shining directly on us, exaggerating our flaws, magnifying our mistakes, and amplifying our presence in the minds of others. In reality, most people aren't paying us nearly as much attention as we fear. But it feels like they are. You've probably experienced it, walking into a store, a party, a classroom, or even something as mundane as a grocery aisle, and suddenly you feel exposed. Eyes on you, judgment imagined. You become hyper-aware of every step, every gesture, every micro-expression. Not because anyone said anything, but because your mind whispered they're watching, and so you retreat inward. That inner scrutiny slowly chips away at your ability to move freely. You find yourself hesitating, before speaking, before laughing, before wearing that outfit you liked, or sharing that opinion you believe in. You revise your actions based on how they might be received, rather than how true they are to who you are. It becomes a loop. One comparison leads to another. One moment of self-doubt cascades into days of internal debate. Suddenly, you're not doing your own thing anymore. You're adjusting, adapting, filtering yourself through an invisible lens. And the cruel twist is that the people you're comparing yourself to, they're often just as unsure. They have their own spotlights, their own quiet battles with self-image. They're not analyzing you nearly as deeply as you think. In fact, most of them are probably too busy wondering what you think of them. It's a strange illusion of modern life. We're all so deeply focused on how we're perceived that we overlook the fact that everyone else is just as distracted by the same fear. And yet, this awareness doesn't make the experience easier. You might catch yourself thinking, if I had just behaved differently in that moment, things would have turned out better. Maybe you imagine alternate versions of yourself, more confident, more composed, more effortlessly accepted. That imagined self becomes a point of comparison too. Another version of you to measure up to. What we often overlook is that much of this self-editing stems from a deep, basic human desire to feel accepted, to feel like we matter, to feel seen, but also to be understood. There's no shame in that. It's part of being human. But when we let that desire shape our entire identity, we lose the ability to move authentically. Instead of building a self, we build a mask. And we wear it so long we start to believe it's our true face. Doing your own thing, in this context, becomes radical. It becomes an act of courage, not because it's flashy or rebellious, but because it defies the pull of conformity. It resists the gravitational force of comparison. To live your life with intention, rather than imitation, is not something you stumble into. It takes practice. It takes strength. It requires you to sit with discomfort and still choose the version of yourself that feels right, not the one that looks right. Because the truth is, when you're always worried about how others are living, you're never fully present in your own life. You're observing, calculating, measuring, but not experiencing. And that can be a deeply lonely place to live. The spotlight effect tricks you into believing that the world is a stage where your every move is under inspection. But most of the time, it's not. Most people aren't thinking about you at all. They're trapped in their own head, rehearsing their own monologues. That realization can be freeing. It lifts the pressure just a bit. Enough for you to loosen your grip on control. Enough for you to try things again, more honestly, more wholly. Of course, there will be moments when doubt returns, when comparison sneaks back in, when you feel the weight of that invisible spotlight and question whether you belong. But the more you practice doing your thing, fully, unapologetically, the more you create a life that's yours. One that isn't just a reflection of others, but a collection of your own decisions, values, and imperfections. You begin to experience pride, not because you're better than anyone else, but because you didn't abandon yourself along the way. That's the quiet power of authenticity. Not loud, not performative, but deeply grounded. And if you can hold on to that, even when the spotlight feels hot, even when the urge to compare gnaws at you, you'll find a rhythm that's truer than any imitation. A confidence not built from applause, but from presence. You'll be doing your own thing, not in reaction to others, not in performance of expectations, but in response to who you are becoming. And maybe that's the most fulfilling path there is. Anyways, thank you for listening to this episode of the Moors October Rants. Signing out. Have a good one, guys.